Hey, shit talkers, what's going on? Welcome to Hollywood Shit. And I can say it like that 80 times. Shit, because Jason's not here, but that's okay. It was his birthday the other day, so if you see him on Twitter, wish him a happy birthday. But in the meantime, I have fabulous Liz with me, and we have so much to talk about. I'm Allie Kona Bradford, and follow Liz. Give him your Twitter handle.
At Liz Crokin.
And I'm at Boys and Beauty, and y'all know the biggest news in social media is the breakup of BradJelina.
And so sad. We should have a funeral.
I know. Well, I know you've covered them for years. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I love them so much that I couldn't bear to read the stories because every time I turn on Yahoo, there's always, Brad, abuse, this, that. I'm like, no, I don't want to see them like that. And I'm sure half of it's rumors, half of it's true. But what do you know about Brad?
Or exaggerated. God, where do I begin? So I covered Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie since the time that they got together. And actually, I should say since the time before they got together because... they officially claimed that they got together after Brad had broken up with Jennifer Aniston. But the truth of the matter is they got together while he was still married to Jennifer Aniston, and it's been confirmed. Actually, I have a friend that worked on the Mr. and Mrs. Smith movie that they filmed together while Brad was still married to Jennifer Aniston, and she's like, "Oh my God, you walk by their trailer, you could hear them having sex."
What?
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
So they got together while he was still married. I mean, they fully had an affair, but they try to play it off in the media that they didn't get together until...
But really quick, though, how do you go from being the couple that got together through infidelity to being, like, America's sweetheart couple? It's so crazy how we easily forgot about all that.
I know, right?
Because we just, loved them together so much that we, or at least for me, slightly forgot about the fact that he totally cheated on his wife to get with her.
I don't know. I mean, maybe, Angelina Jolie, pulled a wag the dog in her UN ambassador.
Seriously, I mean, she went we talked about this in another episode, having a relationship with her brother at one point, which is weird.
She didn't have a relationship with her brother. They did this weird thing where she kissed him on the lips, at
an award show.
I think he's gay, if my memory serves me correct, so that was weird, but they definitely had a little strange... of a relationship, but I mean, they weren't sexually
good to know.
Good
to know, as far right, as I know. People?
But there was weird stuff going on. I mean, and she did a lot of stuff for attention and headlines, and she can be very dark. But they had this affair, and of course, their PR people and everyone spun it from their teams, spun it that they didn't get together until after the divorce was announced between Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston, and none of that's true. But, at the same point in time, I believe and I've heard that even though their divorce hadn't been filed, that things were bad between Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston. And, I mean, usually if someone's going astray like that and have an affair, then your marriage probably isn't that great. Not that makes... not that that's a good excuse, but... That's usually the case. But, so, I covered them for years, and I covered...
For what magazine? Breakup. Really quick, so we can let our people know.
I think when they first got together, I was working for In Touch Weekly in Chicago. I was actually their whole Midwest editor.
Okay.
And they were actually... Jennifer Aniston filmed multiple movies in Chicago, and then Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie filmed movies in Chicago, too. So they were constantly in Chicago. So I was on the movie sets... for when Jennifer filmed, and when Angelina Jolie filmed, and when Brad Pitt filmed, he filmed Ocean's 11 and Ocean's 12 there for, not the entire movie, but parts of it. So they were in Chicago a lot, and then I've traveled for them. I went to the Galapagos Islands in Ecuador right after they got engaged because we thought that they might be having their wedding there, and I mean, I literally spent 10 days, sitting at a pool.
Hard job, right?
That was actually amazing. But... so I started covering them, when they were having their affair and then when they got together. And I will say, as much as, a lot of people love them as a couple and they love them as a family, and, and I was shocked and not shocked at the same time about the news.
Really?
I wasn't completely shocked. I mean, come on. It's
it's Hollywood. Okay, right. That's the one thing I gotta say is Hollywood, while it's fantastic as far as a career and you think it's glitz and glow, and like all that great stuff. But like there's so much pressure and doing so many things, and I feel like as a celebrity it must be difficult, especially when you're someone like Brad and Angelina and all these movies and your schedules are probably doing this and that, and then he's over here making out with her on this film and you're making out with him. Like, you're human at the end of the day.
Yeah.
To me, I still think that would be way hard to be in that situation.
Oh, it's so hard. But so there's several reasons, I'm sure, and I know why they broke up. But
yes.
But the first thing is that the rule of thumb, and like any therapist or psychiatrist or whoever, any professional will tell you that most relationships that were built on infidelity never lasts. So,
good point.
Regardless if you're Angelina Jolie or Brad Pitt or Joe Schmo, that owns, the hardware store, in a little town and wherever, like, that's usually the rule of thumb. If your relationship starts out of an affair, that's not a good foundation to start a relationship on, and that's true for anyone, no matter who you are. So, in that respect, I thought, and if the rule of thumb also is if a guy is going to cheat once, he's going to cheat again. And obviously, Brad cheated on Jennifer Aniston with Angelina Jolie. So that the odds were stacked against them from the beginning, from a statistical standpoint. Now, this is the one thing that I think largely contributed to the demise of their relationship, and that as I covered them after they officially got together, officially got married, and I covered them throughout the years, this was the one thing that I thought was so bizarre about their relationship. And I would say more bizarre about Brad's life than Angelina Jolie's life, because Angelina Jolie has always had an unusual life, an unusual lifestyle. She's a very unique person, and she's made it her life's mission to travel the world and to help other people, and she does all this humanitarian work, which is great, and it's what she loves to do. But that's not to say that Brad doesn't like to do charity and doesn't want to do charity.
Right.
He's not a nomad like she is, okay?
Yeah.
So what I'm talking about is, when I was covering them for the magazines full time, what I thought was so weird is that they literally don't have any stability. They're never home. So they have a house, for example, in Los Angeles, and they have this huge chateau in, I believe it's France, right? They may be, and this could be different because I haven't worked full-time as an entertainment journalist for a couple of years, but when I did for years, they would maybe spend 2 weeks out of the year, and I'm not kidding you, at their home in LA. Think about that. So there's no stability with this family.
And they have so many kids on top of that, too.
That's the thing. Like, literally, and this blew my mind. Like, they would be in, like, for example, when I was in the Galapagos Islands, they'd be there for 3 weeks, like, running a house. Then they'd go, I don't know, to, like, France or Chateau in France for maybe, like, a few weeks. Then they'd go to Africa, and do humanitarian work for a few weeks. Then they'd go, to Germany where Brad's filming a movie, and they'd live there for a few months.
Yeah.
Kids need stability. They need consistency, and I mean, they didn't have that at all. Okay, and for Angelina, that's kind of who she is. That's what she's used to. But for someone like Brad Pitt, who seems to be someone, before he was with Angelina Jolie, he would hang out with the guys. He would go to his regular spots in LA, his favorite Mexican restaurant, and hang out with his bud George Clooney, and go to an event here and there, and he would have, like, some kind of normalcy in his life. He went from that to having none of that. None of that. His whole life is spent, like, on a plane in a different country every few weeks. And raising 6 kids, I can't even imagine how difficult that would be. Right,
especially from 6 different walks of life.
I just, just think about it, though. Like, when you come home at night and you need Advil or something, to walk in your bathroom and you know where that bottle of Advil is. They live in a new place, like, every 2 weeks. Like, the kids, like, how do they know where their toys are? Like, how do they know where, like, the cookies are? Like, it's just, there's no stability there. And so, the nomadic lifestyle they lead, I can't imagine how that could ideally work.
Yeah, but they lasted for so many different years, so you would think if that was something that really wore him out, how did it not wear him out a few years earlier, you know, before he even proposed.
And
because
you're right, and it's honestly it's shocking that it lasted that long, and I mean it's covering them in their lifestyle and all the traveling. It just covering them was exhausting. I mean, he must be exhausted. But
I mean, he's okay. But here, at the devil's advocate, though, I mean, he's a celebrity too. He's done many, many movies prior to Angelina. He was probably traveling to location and not having a normal life either. So you'd think that he'd be
no, because before he dated Angelina Jolie, before he married her and became her partner or whatever, and they had kids together, he'd do a movie and be on location, blah, 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 and then he'd come home and he'd chill out and he'd hang out with his friends and he'd go do his regular activities. That was completely erased from his life.
Gotcha.
I mean, think about that. Like, he was in, they would spend maybe 1 or 2 weeks a year in LA.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that you go a whole year without seeing, like, your neighbor, your friends, or, like, that's not normal. And, like, Brad did not, Angelina Jolie grew up in Hollywood, okay?
Right.
Her dad's John Voight, and she grew up with famous parents, and she probably had a somewhat nomadic life growing up as a child. Brad Pitt grew up Midwest, like, totally normal parents. When I say normal, like, they had normal, like, 9-to-5 jobs, like, so he didn't have the unique lifestyle of, like, living the Hollywood life as a child.
Yeah.
He had a really basic Midwestern upbringing. So, but you're right. The fact that their relationship lasted as long as they did, honestly, is remarkable. But considering the 6 kids, all the traveling, never being home, like, and they do say that when they filmed movies, only one person be filming a movie at a time, so they could always be together and keep the family together. But, I think that there was that time period where Angelina Jolie had health problems.
Yeah, I was just going to say, when she was doing with her issues, she was doing the double mastectomy cancer prevention, and she had said how much, she was in love with him and how he was by her side, and in reading those articles, I remember just thinking, oh, like, this is so sweet, and they've kept it together for so long, despite the odds, and, like, all these things. So for me, yeah, when this news broke, I was completely shocked, and what I'm trying to figure out is, what do you think is really the real reason? I mean, outside of that, it's got to be more than just the nomadic lifestyle.
Well, okay, so I think that was, the nomadic lifestyle was really stressful.
Because she broke up with him, right?
Well, there's, like, mixed reports on that. But technically, she filed for divorce. Okay? So she filed divorce, but, I think there was who's to say who broke up with who first? They were butting heads. I think that they were definitely mutually headed in that direction. He didn't want her to pull the trigger and file the papers the way that she did, and she did. So
when you say the way that she did, what was the way?
He wanted to, from what I'm hearing from my sources, he wanted to, like, plan it with her and to break the news in a very carefully
amicable reasons. We're
PR
friends.
orchestrated way, just because of the kids.
Gotcha.
And from what I'm hearing, she basically was like no, and just kind of did it. I don't know. Some people say she did it kind of behind his back, but then I also heard that he knew the day before she actually went through and filed. So, but she pulled the trigger, and he didn't want her to do it that fast and in that fashion. But another thing that I thought really interesting about their relationship, the movie that they did together. Did you see the movie they did together, By the Sea?
No, I did not see that movie. I believe it's called
By the Sea.
But she directed it, right?
She wrote it. She produced it. She directed it. Oh, wait. She wrote, produced. I think they produced it together. They both acted in it.
Yeah.
She directed it. They both acted in it. And I believe that they both wrote it or she wrote it. That movie, I watched that recently before it was announced that they were breaking up. And I had to watch it over and over again. And I thought it was a good movie. It didn't do well in the box office. It didn't get the best reviews. But I thought it was such a good movie, and I was obsessed with it because I know them and because I've covered Angelina and I've covered Brad. To me, it was their relationship to a T. I believe the movie is their story. 100% their story. And as someone that's not only covered them, but someone that's written a book that's fiction, everything, no matter what you write, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, everything a lot of it,
It's inspired by real life.
personal experiences, whether that's intentional or not. Okay.
Yeah.
And I know that for a fact as a writer, and I watched this movie and then I compared the movie to things I've heard about them, things I've read about them, things my sources have told me about them, and I was like, wow, this movie is so fascinating to me because this is, if you want to be a fly on the wall in Angelina Jolie's and Brad Pitt's bedroom, this movie's it. I guarantee you that...
I need to go watch it.
Watch the movie. And I was like, and Angelina Jolie can be very dark. You know, I
could see that.
She could be very dark, and she knows that, she admits it, and the wife that she plays in this movie is so dark. And they have their good times together and things are really good between them, but then she gets really dark. And Brad's character gets frustrated. He doesn't know what to do. And, you know, so what does he do? He turns to alcohol and he abuses it and he gets drunk and she gets mad that he's drinking too much and is getting drunk. Well, all of my sources and the reports I've read about them, she's been pissed off because she thinks that he drinks too much. And
really?
There was just so many parallels. And so, you know, in interviews they say that there's some similarities in this movie between them and the characters, but not really. And I'm watching the movie and I'm like, oh, this is so them. And I was just blown away by it because I really felt like this is probably exactly what their relationship was like. Now, in the movie, she's a tortured soul and she's very dark because she had a miscarriage, okay? Mm-hmm. And she wanted to have a baby and she had a miscarriage and they weren't able to have children. Obviously, in real life, they have 6 children. Right. And so
But they adopted. Before they had their own child themselves, they adopted a few. So that's not to say that maybe that happened.
That could have happened, but I think the reality is, I think that the thing that they fictionalized in the movie, and this is just my theory, but what I think they fictionalized is, I think the way that Angelina reacted in the movie, how dark she got and depressed she got about the miscarriage, I believe that's how she reacted to her health crisis when she had to get the double mastectomy. Yeah. And Brad really had to be there by her side. I think that must have had an enormous impact on her psyche, and her relationship with him as someone who's had horrible, horrible health problems that have brought me to that dark side. So I could totally relate to Angelina Jolie's character. I think that when she was acting in that movie, she got that pain from her own personal health problems, and I believe that the pain that she was suffering in her role in the film that affected her relationship with Brad in the film was exactly what happened in real life when she had health problems. So I think if you watch that movie, there's so many parallels, I guarantee you, between those characters and their real relationship, you know, which isn't it sad?
I was going to say, I will say this, as somebody who is an actor as well, I know that when you really get into a role sometimes, emotionally, you, as an actor, live through something truthfully, right? And if you are touching upon something like she might be touching upon a really painful issue, and it did already entail Brad, and she's acting in this movie with Brad, I'm sure old emotions were brought up. And sometimes, no matter how much you want to, you do get yourself into a dark place, and it's very difficult to get out. You know, it's like when they talk about, like, with Heath Ledger, and when he had, you know, had his issues doing the Joker and being dark and all those things, like, it really does mess with you. I mean, it's so crazy. I mean, not to get off of Brad and Angelina, but really quick, there was a point where I was dealing with the same issue as far as having to really go into a dark place. And because my emotions were so up and down, it literally affected me physically to where, it sounds weird, but I got cold sores all over my mouth. And, like, I've had 1 or 2, you know, whatever. But because I was it's just like my body was doing all these things and I was getting sick, and I was like, oh my God. And it's like, it's not even real, but I'm so there emotionally.
That's true. That's so true. Your body reacts to stress. Your body reacts to evil. Yeah. Literally. Yeah. I mean, that there's so much to that. So it's true.
I was gonna say, I could only imagine if she's reliving something dark like that. And again, Brad is in it as well. And if you're telling me that Brad has this past of potentially drinking or doing something too much that she doesn't like, and pulling from that energy and doing all that all over again in this film, and then going home to that again, and maybe not shutting it off could easily lead to conflict at home too.
And another thing you have to think about is that, you know, they were
excuse me.
well, constant. So think about this: they're constantly traveling and they're constantly in a new place. So let's say they're in Africa or wherever. Brad, like, if they got into an argument or a fight, how do you blow off steam? You
can't as a celebrity,
right.
like you can't. Well, all eyes are on you.
But not only that, what I'm saying is, like, if they were, let's say, if they had a normal life in LA, okay, and they weren't like these citizens of the world, and they got into a fight, he could call up George Clooney and be like, I just got in a big fight. Can I come over and have a beer? Let's play around the pool. Well, when you're in Africa, where you don't have any friends, you don't know anyone, like, that's, you know what I mean? I think that I don't know, I think that probably was a huge factor in, like, the demise of their relationship, because, you know, I've been in relationships where I've lived in different cities and I didn't have any friends, and I was traveling, and let me tell you, when I got into an argument, you know, with my boyfriend, and I didn't have, like, anywhere to go, it made it so much worse.
Right.
You know? And so I think that contributed to the relationship demise as well. You know, it's like you're like, for example, right before she filed for divorce, they got into this huge fight on an airplane, on a private jet.
Oh.
Well, yeah, you didn't hear about
that? No, do
tell. So they got this is like what triggered, you know, allegedly her filing for divorce. And I mean, they've been fighting for a while. Obviously, things weren't good, but they were on like a very long flight. I can't remember where they were going but very long flight, and they got into a big fight on the plane. And Brad was drinking. And
really quick, I never knew he was a drinker.
Yeah,
did not know that, and it little disappoints me just a little bit. Cause,
yeah, I mean, I don't know if he has a drinking problem. I know that he drinks, and I've heard that she doesn't like how much he drinks. And he smokes pot. I mean, like, him and Jennifer Aniston used to smoke pot all the time.
That's so weird, too. Although, because Jennifer Aniston, like, I see her as friends. I know she's probably trying to live that down, obviously, with the role she takes and how bitter she seems about her friend's character.
Yeah.
But I always see her as, like, Miss Goody-Goody.
I don't think Jag's a stoner. I think that when she was with him, she kind of...
did whatever he did. You said that she was a little bit of a chameleon when it came to her boyfriend.
That's Jag.
That's another story.
But... yeah, so they're, like, on this plane for hours, and they get in this fight, and Brad's drinking, and so when you drink, that's going to escalate anything, of course.
Right.
And so he's drinking, and, like, I guess at one point, Maddox got involved, and was, like, I think standing up for Angelina Jolie, and was, like, talking down to Brad, and the report is that Brad got physical with Maddox, and, like pushed him a little or something. So Angelina's people are saying that he was, like, physically abusive or physical, and Brad's people actually aren't disputing that there was contact, but they're like, yeah, he touched him, he moved him out of the way. But anyways, it goes back to my point that they're in this plane, there's nowhere to go. Like, if they're in this big fight and Brad wants to blow off steam, you're stuck next to that person for, like, 7 more hours, but that's what their whole life's been like. They've isolated themselves from the world. Mm-hmm. You know, like, they go to these places that are beautiful and amazing. Like, I was with them in the Galapagos Islands, but they don't have any friends. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, they have their staff, but it's not like you can just call up. You know, when you don't live somewhere, right? And you're just always on the go. So I think that really hurt their relationship. Again, I'm no relationship expert, but just as someone that's covered them and an outsider looking in, and I think that probably took a toll on their relationship, and it probably took a toll on the kids too, you know? Of course. So it's too bad, and I'm actually sad, you know, because I liked them as a couple, and they did so much positive work. Yeah. Not only in film, but the humanitarian stuff.
Exactly.
And, like, you know, but... it's too bad, and, you know, I just hope that they can find peace with their split and move on, and it's at the end of an era. I don't know, what can you say? Yeah,
I agree. And going back to also just to reiterate, I mean, I think it's really, really difficult to have a relationship in Hollywood. I think a lot of times us as normal folk, for lack of better words, you know, we see these people on television, we idolize what they have and don't realize how much they go through, you know, and so it's just...
and always having to put on a happy face. Wherever they go, the one thing that actually their friends are actually probably paparazzi, because that's the consistent people they see on a daily basis. But you always having to put on a happy face. I mean, they're photographed almost every single day. Yeah. The only time they're not photographed is when the paparazzi lose track of them. which rarely happens.
Yeah.
But, oh my gosh. I mean, I think about sometimes when I've had a really bad day, and if someone was following me and photographing me, wow, like, I would have the worst image. Because, you know, I know, like, they always have to be like, oh, you know, everything's perfect, and there's cameras everywhere, like, wherever we go, and, like, God forbid they, like, get caught in an argument. That within itself must be so annoying. But that's the life they signed up for, so.
True. Very true. All right, Liz. Well, guys, thank you for joining us. That about wraps our BradJelina. I mean, there's so much more we could talk about, but we'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Allie Koner Bradford, and of course,
I'm Liz Crokin.
And make sure you find us. You can go to our website, hollywoodshitlA.wix.com/inspire. And of course, you can always find us on social media at HollywoodShitLA. Until next week when we have our third party and maybe even a guest.
Maybe a very special guest.
Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. But yeah, we'll see you then. Thanks for joining us. Mwah. Goodbye.